Thank you very much for coming to this talk. My name is Boris. I am a developer advocate at Google, and I work with companies and developers to help them to be successful with Android apps. And as part of it, I wrote a tool whose name is ClassyShark, and I want to share with you the problems and the solutions that you can do in your app and what ClassyShark can do for you. By the way, how many of you have heard about ClassyShark before? Great. So as part of my work, helping developers be successful with Android, I'm asked many times to assist to apps that misbehave in runtime. And usually, your app might misbehave due to obfuscation or wrong program configurations, dependencies management, Multidex. How many of you have heard Multidex before? So, okay, so you're on the right talk. And native code. By the way, how many of you are working with native code? Great. All these problems have something really in common. That is, identifying the problem is hard, but fixing it is easy. And I will show how ClassyShark can assist you with the hard part. I mean, identifying the problem. So actually, ClassyShark is a standalone tool, which is an executables browser. Good tools make a great craftsman. And my favorite, innovation comes from frustration. So here, how it looks like. I just have here a jar that you can download on the GitHub. Welcome, San Francisco. I changed the logo from the usual shark logo. And what I can do with it? Only great things. Let's open, for instance, IO app, which is an APK. Boom, already loaded. And we can see the internals of our APK. We can see the manifest, all the permissions, activities. We can see the classes, classes 0.x, number of classes, number of strings, number of methods. And because I deal with it so much, I put it in yellow, so it will be easier for me. Bunch of classes with native calls and abstract calls. If I click on this, I can see almost every class. A little bit of search wouldn't help, will definitely help. This looks interesting. And you can see here the internals of Dalvik and Dalvik standard when it uses annotations, the inner class, the signature things. And of course, the best, packages. This is the pie of my APK. And I see what goes where. And I see the method budget that goes inside my APK for which dependency. And I can click on it. Great. So after we have seen a little bit how to work with it, let's go back to the presentation and see which problems ClassyShark will actually help you to solve. This is the link to download it, which is a GitHub site. Let me open it. Here it is. When you want to download, you just go to releases. And I don't have a Wi-Fi, but let's assume it works. So ClassyShark will help you to analyze your APK, meaning your Android app. We are going to discuss now the 8 failures and 8 ways to diagnose them with ClassyShark. And we start from easy to hard. So if you lose me toward the end of the presentation, this is totally fine. I hope you will not get to it in your professional Android life. Obfuscated APK. You know, sometimes when I get a stuck trace from something that crashed in my APK, I see a bunch of methods, a.a inside b.b, and follow them is really difficult. And you start mapping and you start playing with mapping file that, for instance, Progart generates for you. With ClassyShark, you can do it with ease. You can navigate inside your APK like it and search for the classes like it were a regular IDE. So then anyway, you can understand what does a.a inside b.b goes to. Another problem is when the obfuscator is misconfigured, then your app crashes due to unsatisfied runtime dependencies. Usually this happens when something is wrong in the obfuscator configuration. And the solution with ClassyShark is pretty easy. You open your bad APK with ClassyShark and you look which data it's actually missing, or which library or which APIs might be stripped away. And of course, the solution is pretty easy. Once you understand the problem, you just update the relevant keep flags. Duplicate dependencies. How many of you have the problem that your classes.dex is really huge? Excellent. Let's see what can we do in order to a little bit minimize it. When I'm inspecting APKs, one of the problems that I have been seeing too much is having two versions of the same library in the same APK. Usually, you don't need it. But sometimes something goes wrong in Gradle config, and dependency of your dependency pulls another version of the same library. By the way, the most popular is JSON. It's like a joke. When you go to plane, it's a good idea to go to plane that has two engines. But in APK's world, having two versions of JSON might not be the optimal. How to sort it out? Pretty easy. Each time before you release, take a look at your APK and look for same classes, but with different package names. By the way, sometimes there are legitimate reasons for this, but usually this is not the case. So please do it. You will decrease the size of your classes.dex and you will increase performance, because the less stuff you have to load and to operate in runtime, that means better performance for your app. Test dependencies. How many of us like testing? Great. One of the problems for me to do TDD, test-driven development, is I need to mock framework classes. And usually this is annoying, this is error-prone, you got to go inside the sources of the SDK and pull out things. ClassyShark provides you the services at no time. For instance, if I open an Android jar, let me just find it. And let's say I want to have a test that mocks Activity Manager, which is my favorite class. By the way, you can see it here. ClassyShark supports camel case searching. Then, if I press this button, it will dump out all of this, which is all the kind of sources that ClassyShark generates and emits. And then you have the full Activity Manager API. You go inside these methods, and you put your own testing data or the testing scenarios that you want to emulate. And thus, you can build your own testing infrastructure better. So the problem is generating dependency stub classes. It's tedious and error prone. Use this lovely button. And also, I'm going to touch it in the end of the presentation. ClassyShark has a rich command line interface. So you can do the same stuff, not only from UI, but also from command line. Having test dependencies. Okay, we all agree we love testing. However, some apps that I have seen in the field accidentally put their tests inside the release APK. You know, doing tests is great, but having tests inside of your release APK usually is a bad thing. It increases the size of your APK with the stuff that doesn't need to be there. And with ClassyShark, you can look for this problem pretty easy. And by the way, the fix is trivial. Usually the problem comes with Gradle misconfiguration between the test and the debug tasks. So you just open your APK, and then you look for unnecessary testing classes, testing frameworks. If you see Mockito inside your release APK, most of the chances it shouldn't be there. Welcome, Multidex. Actually, the session after mine is going also to cover many interesting topics in Multidex. Truly recommend it. Method count per package. One of the problems, and you know what, let me just 2 sentences about the Multidex limit. Each classes.dex can have till 65K method references. And when you go more, then the problem began, because the toolchain will not be able to give you to compile it. So in order to be aligned with a DEX budget, we need to know in advance the library that we are adding. How is it going to affect our DEX budget? And there are a bunch of tools inside IDE and some web tools that you can look at the method count of the sources. And here is a problem. The numbers from sources are wrong, meaning IDE method count is not equal to classes.dex method count. Let's see why. Compilation, synthetic methods, fields, constructors, optimizations, you know, method inlining, and other interesting things, and obfuscation, they can all change the method count. And ClassyShark sees the same method count as your runtime is seeing. So if we are going back to our APK, by the way, here is the recent files list, which is really convenient. And we go here. We see for each package how many methods actually the runtime needs to allocate. So BumpTech costs 1,500 methods. Google libraries are costing around 14,000 methods. And here, as we discussed before, you got the whole DEX table. O&O per classes 0.x, how many classes, how many strings, how many types, how many prototypes, fields, and methods. And this thing is a lifesaver. Another problem that I have been seeing a lot as an Android developer is sometimes the public APIs of my dependencies don't tell me the whole story. And something that really helps me is to look at the jar of some SDK or framework that I'm using and to see how public APIs are built. And the most popular example that I had, for instance, working with one of the most popular SDKs is calling a non-synchronized method from multiple threads. And this was a pain, a big pain. And the solution was easy. Once I looked in the method signatures, I have seen that the methods are not synchronized. And then doing my own synchronized block solved it all. But please, when you do it, and you are looking with ClassyShark to your dependencies, don't abuse it. Don't call private APIs by reflection. Don't abuse the dependency. And know and use APIs. By the way, this is relevant not only for dependencies, but also for Android. And we are getting to fun stuff. Large DEX values. As you know, DEX is a format and a standard. And as we have seen before, all the DEX table that ClassyShark is showing, ClassyShark shows not only the numbers, but also can dump them. But usually they're big. So that's why ClassyShark dumps them in a text file, so you can happily look at your favorite editor and to understand the reason why your text values are that large. And let me show. So as we discussed, we have both the command line, for the one who loves the command line, and the UI, and we dump string and methods table. So when we hit this lovely button, ClassyShark generates the following files for us in the folder that ClassyShark resides. All classes, all methods, all strings. This is really important. Bunch of dumps of the current classes. And for instance, if you're interested to see what are all your methods, you can open it with your favorite editor. And you can see it here. Search with your favorite editor. And the important of all, you can understand the reason why your APK has so many methods. Large DEX values too. And this is our most difficult subject. Sometimes we are not sure on various things in Java spec. For instance, does Java generate synthetic accessor for private static fields? If you are not a compiler junkie, you are going to fall asleep on the third word of this sentence. What is the solution? Stuff that you are not sure how it will behave. Make a simple class and inspect it with ClassyShark. And then you understand better what Java-C generates and how it causes or changes your method limit. And yes, Java-C does indeed generate a synthetic accessor, but only if the field isn't final. All in all, at this point, we finished the 8 really important things that the ClassyShark can help you. In the remaining time, we are going to see to browse a bunch of features that ClassyShark provides. I think we have seen the Android manifest viewer. And let's see if I have an internet so I can show you the command line usage. Just a moment. So we have here the GitHub of ClassyShark, the command line reference. So roughly all the stuff that we discussed possible to be done in UI, it's possible to be done in from command line as well. So here is how we do it with all the screenshots and the commands itself. So please take a look. This is, by the way, the ClassyShark site, where I put the use cases that I find useful, know-how, bunch of articles, both published by me and by community. This is interesting. Something happened to the slides. Works. Command line we discussed. And following the request from community, last week I added API and Gradle plugin so you can use a ClassyShark as part of your build or continuous integration and call ClassyShark APIs to get all the data which is available in a text form, but programmatically. So let me show you how. Still, I haven't integrated it to the main branch. And we have here a branch samples plugin. And there is a samples folder here. And this is our Gradle friend. And this is the plugin. Just a sec. By the way, this is all the plugin. Pretty easy. We need to use Java. We need to use application. I put ClassyShark.jar as a dependency in the libs folder. And I did this. This is a nice trick that you can do with Gradle, is to have a Java file that is going to be compiled and run as part of your build. And this class is called main. And let me show you the sources, which are easy. Go here. And here it is. And here are all the APIs of ClassyShark in less than 20 lines. File APK. Opening ClassyShark, Shark with APK. I did it for purpose object-oriented, so you can mock the dependencies. And then you can get all generated class, all class names, manifest, methods. And here are the signatures. And basically, this is the API and signatures of all the methods. And with this data, you can add it to your own build and continuous integration and get all this data as part of your build. For instance, if you can add a rule to Gradle that will trigger something when your DEX budget is over a certain limit. And this is how to do it, pretty easy, because all the interfaces are here. Yes, it takes time to load, and I don't understand why. Hello. All in all, ClassyShark supports the following binary formats, meaning that you can have a file in each of these formats, and ClassyShark knows how to load and to present the data in a human readable form. In addition, I haven't shown you on my sample, but ClassyShark also knows how to read the native code. So we got a native libs list, native methods per classes.dex, abstract methods per classes.dex, which is also really important, native dependencies of SO files, which are the files that are generated if you have a native code, dynamic symbols, and the size. So, you have seen what ClassyShark can do. What would you like to see in ClassyShark? Yeah, I know, that's not easy. This is the site where you can see all the stuff. Let me thank you for coming to hear my talk. I really enjoyed sharing this stuff with you. In the remaining time, I shall be happy to handle any questions you might have. So, questions? Yes, sir.
For AAR libraries, I heard somebody say you can't get a correct method count on AAR libraries. Does ClassyShark have that problem?
ClassyShark knows how to read AR. I think I even have some samples. And AR files, there before compilation, so the method count might be different, as we discussed.
You said if I have the same dependency referenced multiple times, ClassyShark provides you with a way to identify those. So how do you do that again?
Thanks. Actually, the best way to know it is go over all your packages in the packages view from ClassyShark. And once you see you have twice JSON, but under different package names, that means you need to investigate there more. Again, there could be some corner cases where they're adjustable. If you have an old dependency that needs an older version. But usually this is a really, really bad sign. And sometimes it might happen due to Gradle misconfig. More questions, comments?
So ClassyShark actually compiles your deck, your executables, and it gives you information about methods and classes and stuff like that.